Gnosticism is a set of religious and philosophical beliefs that emerged between the 1st and 3rd centuries AD, influencing various spiritual traditions, including Christianity, Judaism, and Hellenistic religions. The term derives from the Greek word gnosis, gamenu, meaning knowledge. Gnostics believed that salvation did not come from faith or good deeds, but from secret, spiritual knowledge about the true nature of reality and human beings. Origins and influences of Gnosticism. The origins of Gnosticism are complex and involve various philosophical and religious traditions of the ancient world. Some of the main influences include Platonism. Gnostics adopted many ideas from the philosopher Plato, 428 to 348 BC, especially his distinction between the material world, imperfect and illusory, and the spiritual world, the true reality. Middle Eastern religions. Elements of Persian and Babylonian mythology appear in several Gnostic doctrines, especially the idea of a cosmic struggle between the forces of light and darkness. Judaism. Some Gnostic groups reinterpreted the Jewish scriptures, often portraying the creator God of the Old Testament, Yaldabaoth or Demiurge, as an evil being who traps humanity. Christianity. Christian Gnosticism emerged in the early centuries of Christianity, presenting Jesus as a spiritual teacher who brought gnosis to free humans from the material world. Main characteristics of Gnosticism. Gnostic teachings vary from group to group, but some common beliefs include radical dualism. Gnostics saw the material world as corrupt and evil, created by an inferior god, known as the Demiurge, often identified with the God of the Old Testament. The true supreme God is beyond the physical world and inaccessible to most people. The soul as a prisoner of the body. Humans contain a divine spark, a part of the true God, but this essence is imprisoned in the physical body and the material world. Liberation occurs through gnosis, a special knowledge that allows one to escape the cycle of ignorance and reincarnation. Salvation through secret knowledge. Unlike Orthodox Christianity, which emphasizes faith in God and moral obedience, Gnosticism teaches that salvation comes from a profound understanding of the true nature of the universe. Only those who receive this esoteric knowledge can achieve enlightenment and return to the divine world. Criticism of the God of the Old Testament. Gnostics reinterpreted the biblical story of Genesis, seeing the Creator, the Demiurge, as a deceptive God who trapped humanity in the material world. The serpent in the Garden of Eden, for example, was seen as a symbol of wisdom, as it helped Adam and Eve seek forbidden knowledge. Main Gnostic schools and texts. 1. Valentinian school. Founded by Valentinus in the 2nd century AD, this branch mixed Gnosticism with Christianity. It taught that Christ was a spiritual being who descended to the world to reveal Gnosis. 2. Scythian school. The Scythians believed that Seth, the son of Adam and Eve, was the bearer of secret knowledge. They had an extremely dualistic view and completely rejected the material world. 3. Manichaeism. Founded by Mani in the 3rd century AD, Manichaeism combined elements of Gnosticism with Zoroastrianism and Christianity. It taught a cosmic struggle between light and darkness, with humanity caught in the middle of this conflict. Gnostic texts were widely destroyed by Orthodox Christians, but some manuscripts were rediscovered in the 20th century, especially the famous Nag Hammadi Library, found in Egypt in 1945. Some of the main texts include the Gospel of Thomas, a collection of teachings attributed to Jesus, with no reference to his death or resurrection. The Gospel of Philip presents mystical ideas about the relationship between Jesus and Mary Magdalene. The Apocalypse of John, an alternative version of the Apocalypse with strong Gnostic influence. Gnosticism and Orthodox Christianity. From the early centuries of Christianity, Gnostics were considered heretics by church leaders. Church fathers such as Irenaeus of Lyon, Tertullian, and Hippolytus wrote extensively against Gnosticism, claiming that its doctrines distorted the message of Jesus. The First Council of Nicaea, 325 AD, and other subsequent councils helped consolidate Orthodox Christian theology, which rejected the Gnostic views of God, creation, and salvation. Over time, Gnostic groups were persecuted and nearly disappeared, although their ideas continued to influence various esoteric and mystical currents throughout history. Modern influence of Gnosticism. Although Gnosticism was repressed by the Church, its ideas continue to influence different religious and philosophical movements. Some modern influences include occultism and theosophy. Esoteric movements such as the Theosophical Society and Anthroposophy incorporated Gnostic elements, such as the belief in hidden knowledge reserved for a few initiates, psychoanalysis, and philosophy. Carl Jung extensively studied Gnosticism and interpreted it as a metaphor for the psychological journey of the human being. Fiction and pop culture. Films like The Matrix and The Truman Show feature Gnostic themes, such as the idea that the material world is an illusion and that there is a secret knowledge capable of freeing the human mind. Conclusion: Gnosticism was one of the most fascinating religious movements of antiquity, challenging traditional views of God, creation, and salvation. Although it was condemned as heresy by Orthodox Christianity, its ideas never completely disappeared and continue to influence various spiritual and philosophical currents to this day. Whether in the search for secret knowledge, the rejection of the material world, or the belief in a transcendent God beyond the Creator, Gnosticism remains one of the most intriguing and mysterious traditions in the history of spirituality. Gnosticism, over the centuries, has revealed itself as a deeply complex and multifaceted tradition. It was not a single, homogeneous religion, but rather a collection of belief systems that shared a common vision. The material world was corrupt and illusory, and only secret knowledge, gnosis, could free the human soul. Unlike traditional religions, which emphasized faith in a personal deity or the observance of rituals, the Gnostics believed that salvation lay in understanding the true nature of reality. This conception challenged the dominant religious structures, especially Orthodox Christianity, which taught that redemption came from faith in Christ and obedience to ecclesiastical doctrines. The duality between matter and spirit. Gnosticism is, at its core, a dualistic system of thought. It sees an irreconcilable opposition between spirit and matter, between the true God and the false creator god, demiurge. This radical dualism led the Gnostics to reject much of what traditional religions considered sacred, including the physical world itself. For the Gnostics, matter was a prison from which the soul needed to escape. This led many groups to adopt an ascetic lifestyle, avoiding sensory pleasures and material attachments. Others, however, followed the opposite path and practiced extreme libertinism, arguing that moral laws were imposed by the demiurge and, therefore, should be rejected. This worldview deeply influenced not only early Christianity, but also several later esoteric and philosophical traditions. The idea that there is a hidden truth, accessible only to initiates, became a recurring theme in many spiritual currents, from Hermeticism to modern occultism. The conflict with Orthodox Christianity, Gnosticism, came into direct conflict with the emerging Christianity in the first centuries of the Christian era. While the Gnostics reinterpreted the figure of Jesus as a spiritual master who came to bring secret knowledge, the Orthodox Church maintained that he was the incarnate Son of God, whose death and resurrection guaranteed salvation to all who had faith. The early church fathers, such as Irenaeus of Lyons and Tertullian, fiercely fought against the Gnostics, writing treatises denouncing them as heretics. The Council of Nicaea, in 325 AD, consolidated Orthodox Christian doctrine and completely excluded Gnostic interpretations. As a result, Gnostic texts and teachings were systematically persecuted and destroyed. However, even under intense repression, Gnosticism never completely disappeared. Its ideas were preserved in small esoteric groups and resurfaced in different contexts throughout history. The rediscovery of Gnosticism for centuries, Gnostic teachings were primarily known through the writings of their opponents. However, the discovery of the Nag Hammadi library in Egypt in 1945 changed this situation. These manuscripts contained several original Gnostic texts, such as the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, and the Apocalypse of John, providing a much more detailed view of this spiritual tradition. The rediscovery of these texts sparked new interest in Gnosticism, both among academics and spiritual seekers. Philosophers such as Hans Jonas and Carl Jung explored its psychological and existential implications, while modern esoteric movements integrated Gnostic elements into their doctrines. The influence of Gnosticism in the modern world, although Gnosticism has been largely suppressed by Christian orthodoxy, its influence can be seen in various areas of modern culture and thought, psychology, and philosophy. Carl Jung saw Gnosticism as a metaphor for the process of individuation, in which the individual awakens to their true spiritual identity. Literature and cinema. Works like The Matrix, The Truman Show, and Inception explore Gnostic themes, such as the idea that the perceived world is an illusion and that hidden knowledge can free the human mind. Modern spiritual movements. Occultism, theosophy, and the New Age have incorporated many Gnostic ideas, especially the belief that esoteric knowledge is the key to spiritual enlightenment. Is Gnosticism still relevant? The final question is Gnosticism still relevant in the contemporary world? The answer depends on how we interpret its teachings. While we live in an era dominated by science and materialism, many people continue to search for a deeper meaning to existence. The idea that reality may be an illusion and that hidden knowledge can liberate the human mind continues to fascinate both academics and spiritualists. Gnosticism also resonates with certain modern philosophical currents, such as existentialism and transhumanism. The notion that the human condition is a prison and that we must transcend our limitations to reach a higher state of consciousness is present both